Hey, what's up guys, it's Nick2 and today I'll be showing you guys a super fun and very strong one-shot sniper build for PvE that will allow you to easily do over 1 million damage per shot, and that's with my build being very far from min-maxed. I'm actually using a 412 gear score sniper, so you could easily be doing up to 1.3 mil if you set it up perfectly. And if you want, you could also take this build into PvP and one-shot with it extremely easily in there as well. You'd probably be overkill, but it's just a nice side effect of having the build already. This build primarily shines in the dark zone and in solo play, as most NPCs there have pretty low health, so you can consistently one-shot most mobs, including elites, and two-shot the majority of bosses. But in group play, it might not be as strong, as it might take 2 shots in a row to kill some NPCs. I haven't tested it with a group before, but I'm sure it would still be strong and definitely worth trying out, as it is a ton of fun to use. Obviously though, this build is a bit harder to use than most because you have to land headshots, but once you get used to it, it's not that difficult, and I mainly just made it to see how much fun I could do in one shot, and like I said, it's a lot of fun to use, especially if you like the sniper-esque playstyle. Before I get into the build, if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to drop a like, as that helps me out a ton. Comment below what other videos you would like to see from me in the future, and subscribe for videos similar to this one. I'm also streaming on Twitch every single day now, so if you'd like to see that, please make sure to follow me at twitch.tv/nick2. I actually made this build while on stream, so if you'd like to see, my thought process going through builds or want to recommend me stuff or anything like that, make sure to check it out. But anyways, let's get into the build. Alright, so starting off, of course, running the sharpshooter specialist. This is pretty obvious. Just you need the headshot damage if you want to do that much damage. The reload speed is also really nice because the Model 700 has a very, very slow reload speed. Stability doesn't really make much of a difference with the sniper, but yeah, you need that for the headshot damage. So, build looks like an absolute mess, I'm sure. Gear pieces all over the place. I'll explain it. It's not 100% perfect. It could be way better, but as you can see in the gameplay, it's still working out pretty good. But yeah, I'll start off with the guns, and then I'll talk about gear sets, individual roles, and individual pieces is actually very important with this build because, as I'm sure you guys know, on some pieces you can't really get certain rolls, if that makes sense. Like on like a DNH knee pad, I can't get a utility or defensive mod slot. That's just a random example that I just thought of. But yeah, so it's important to get certain rolls. So as you can see, I have a 412 gear score Model 700, and I'm still able to one-shot. Somehow I got rid of my 451, so then I had to go and craft a bunch, and this is the best one that I was able to get. But if you were to have a 450, you would be doing way more damage. You have to use a Model 700 if you want to do this in PvE. It has the highest per bullet damage, and the difference between other snipers, do I have another one? The difference is well over like 30k base damage. Like, it's insane. You straight up just don't even want to use any other snipers in PvE, so, or in PvP for that matter. Side note, you'll definitely be able to one-shot with this in PvP as well if you want to do that. So yeah, talents. I would recommend Ranger. You're always, not always, but you're often at a pretty long distance, so if you go out of your way to position yourself in a way that you're pretty far away, Ranger is really nice. Extra weapon damage for how far away you are. Against elite bosses, this will make it to where you can probably two-shot the majority of them if you're at a certain range. I'm not really sure if you even want this, because in certain, like, once you reach a certain threshold, you'll always be two-shotting every NPC, so then getting additional weapon damage doesn't make that big of a difference. I like it because it's helpful for, like, bosses and stuff, because I don't think I've reached that threshold yet, because my build isn't perfect. But I don't know what else you would use on a sniper, right? Because the only thing that matters is hitting that one shot, and I can't really think of anything else that's good, because with this build I'm not running crit chance, and all the other talents are kind of useless. Maybe lucky shot for the extra mag size. Do I have one in here? I don't. Maybe lucky shot, but otherwise it doesn't really matter. For the second talent, you really want to get jazz hands here. The reason for this is because the reload time on this thing is really long, so that'll help. That'll reduce it from 5.5 to just 5 flat, because it's 10% reload speed. The default is 7 if you're not running sharpshooter, so that's kind of a yikes. For the scope, or just for the mods, I mean, you can run a scope, as I'm sure you saw in the gameplay. Sometimes I was running a scope and sometimes I wasn't. I was able to achieve over 1 million without a scope, just because of how strong Ranger was and just because of how good my build is, and it is even that good. In certain situations though, maybe you're doing a challenging mission with a whole bunch of friends and you're just trying to get as much damage as humanly possible, probably go for the scope as you get, 45% headshot damage. But if you're doing like Dark Zone or something like that, you'll one shot without the scope. It's kind of just up to circumstance and it's up to you. Some people just hate using the scope, so up to you. For the magazine, you could run reload speed. Why did it show that? You could run reload speed here. I'd run damage release just for the extra damage, but if you've reached a threshold where you're already one-shotting, the reload speed could be super helpful. Get, more reload speed, it's just faster, and then get jazz hands on there, and then the reloading won't be that big of a deal. Just depends on, I guess, the type of content you're doing. If you're doing like challenging missions, there's not that many elites, so it would probably be worth to run the reload speed. Sorry, I'm getting Discord notifications. For the muzzle, I got damage for elites. This is just because there's pretty much no reason to, I don't need stability on my sniper, and I don't have like any crit chance or crit damage on this build. I have a little bit, but that's not the reason. Like that, you don't want that. You want to get as much weapon damage and stuff as possible. I'll go into that. And this is useless. For the second gun, however, you can use many things. You could use a Liberty. Oh, I haven't crafted mine yet. You could use a Liberty exotic, and then I guess just get the bonus from that. You don't really gain much from Merciless. It's an extra 20% damage. It's not going to make a difference ever with the sniper. Chatterbox, you don't need reload or rate of fire. So for your second gun, I just run a rifle personally, because with this build I'm getting a lot of rifle damage anyways and a lot of headshot damage and whatnot. So this is nice to swap to if I ever need to swap to a gun for like close range or those robo dog things. But you could always just run like an M60 or an AR or something. It really doesn't make much of a difference. You're mainly going to be using the sniper. So for my brand sets, what's really important is getting 3-piece Araldi for the headshot damage and the marksman rifle damage. This is pretty much a must here. A lot of people might say that you want to run 3-piece Providence because it's going to give you 5%. Here's it, 5% weapon damage. The problem with running Providence is that you need to get it on, with this build, you need to get it on your chest piece, your mask, and your knee pads, and certain Providence pieces can't roll with certain like offensive mod slots and stuff like that, or even certain talents, etc. So Providence straight up just doesn't work because you'd end up losing a whole bunch of damage in the long run. So basically what I've done is I've just used pieces of gear that allow me, like, because certain pieces of gear you can't get rolls on, right? So I had to use certain pieces that allow me to get certain types of talents and certain types of rolls. Sorry if you don't really understand that, but it's just like, that's kind of what you have to do in order to get as much damage as possible. So, for example, my mask, I got damage elites and health. I don't really care about the health, but I have hard hitting here. On some masks, you can't get a passive talent. On some masks, it doesn't roll talents ever, right? So, I don't really care about this crit damage or this skill power. This is just the best mask that I had. And like I said, I'm just completely ignoring crit chance and crit damage with this build, trying to get as much flat damage as possible. So ignoring brand sets besides Araldi, because Araldi actually gives you what you need. For the chest piece, you might be like, why the hell are you running this? It's cooldown reduction. This is useless. Well, the Alps chests always roll with 2 attributes, whereas other chests usually roll with about 3. And with this build, 3, 4, stuff like that. But with this build, you want to get as much headshot damage and as much weapon damage as humanly possible. You don't care about crit chance, you don't care about crit damage, you don't care about armor, right? And when you have a piece that has a whole bunch of rolls on it, as you can see, 9% weapon damage, 6% headshot damage versus 18% headshot damage and 8% weapon damage. So you want to get pieces like Alps specifically because the less amount of attributes that are here, the higher this roll is going to be. And you want to prioritize headshot damage here because if you have a higher headshot damage roll than weapon damage, the headshot damage is going to like do more per bullet because you're not hitting body shots, so you just want to get as much headshot as possible. The talent here, I think you can get an Alps chest with damage elites. I'm not 100% sure if you're able to get that talent on there. If not, there isn't really a good talent to go for. And then Alps always has 3 mod slots on it. I have damage to armor. This doesn't really do much, but I have 5% headshot damage as a defensive generic mod, which I'll make a video on how to get generic mod soon. The headshot damage is huge there. And then the armor, because can't really do anything else, but definitely want to make sure to get an Alps chest because that'll give you the most headshot damage and weapon damage possible, more so than any other 3-piece could possibly ever give you. For the holster, gonna want Araldi here because you want to get Araldi holster, gloves, and backpack. So we got Araldi here. Got crit chances to roll. I could get crit damage. It really doesn't matter. I have no crit anyway, so I guess just keep that. For the talent, you definitely want precise here, and then for the mod, I just went for as much headshot damage and weapon damage as possible. For the backpack, you want to get hard hitting, and then you want to get weapon damage. I'm not sure if you can get in a Raldi backpack. I'm pretty sure all Raldi backpacks have 2 rolls here. I don't know if I could get the weapon damage higher. I think I get it to about 10%. And I don't know if a Raldi can get 2 passive talents. Maybe I would rather have hard hitting and hardened, but I'm not sure that it's possible. I think it's always 1 passive, 1 active. But yeah, you want to get weapon damage here and hard hitting. For the mod, it got headshot damage. Gloves, you want Raldi gloves, you want precise as a talent, and you want marksman rifle damage. Pretty simple here. For the knee pads, I guess crit chance, it doesn't matter. Like I said, you don't want to rely on crits at all with this build, and there isn't any other red roll to get, so I guess you could get armor here, but I don't know if Wyvern can roll blue. Alright, it probably could. Wyvern could probably roll blue, I just don't know 100%. Yeah, it probably could. So maybe you would want armor here if you really aren't paying any attention to crit. But sometimes if you crit a lot on a boss, it could be helpful. So maybe having the little bit of crit chance in some situations might be nice, but it doesn't make much of a difference. And then for the talent, I got hard hitting. For the mod, weapon damage, headshot damage. I'd rather have more headshot damage there, but it's not that big of a deal. Oh my god, that was the best voice crack of all time. You could go for different knee pads, maybe, you know, Overlord or something, but you don't want to use, or you can't get an Overlord mask, so I wouldn't try to really worry about another gear set here. I don't know any other gear set you could go for that would be worth. Maybe Gila, but Gila always has defensive mod slots, so you wouldn't want to do that. You just want to make sure to get a knee pad that has hard hitting and then a mod slot, and then this attribute isn't that big of a deal. That's pretty much it for the build. This build could be way better. I'm voice cracking all over the place. The build could be better if I had hard hitting on my backpack, if I had a Model 700 that was actually at 450 gear score, because I think the base damage would be way higher, and I could have a higher roll on certain pieces, like on my mods and stuff like that, and on my gloves I could have up to 13%. So like I said, the build could be way better, but I'm still doing 1 million to people, which is just crazy to me. I'll show you guys my individual stats here. 19% crit chance, which isn't terrible, but the crit damage is really low because, right, I'm not paying any attention to it, so whatever. 237% headshot damage is pretty good. And then, well, 19% marksman rifle damage, 18.5% all weapon damage, 104% damage to elite. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. I'm going to leave some gameplay just so you guys can see how it plays out. It's pretty strong though. It's a lot of fun to use. Yeah, I hope this vid helped.